There is something specific about not understanding, not the mild confusion of a difficult question, the deeper kind, the kind that comes after you've prayed and tried and waited, and still you can't see where any of it is going. You can't connect the dots. You can't find the thread. You look at your life and you think, if there's a plan here, I cannot see it. That feeling has a name, and it has a history much longer than you. His name was Abraham, and the first thing God ever said to him was, go. Not go here. Not go to this specific place for this specific reason, and here is the full plan, and here is how long it will take, and here is what it will cost you. Just go. Leave your country, leave your family, leave what you know. Go to a land I will show you. He was 75 years old. He went. He didn't have a map. He didn't have a timeline. He had a direction and a promise, and neither of them explained what was about to happen to him. He would wait 25 years for the son God had promised. 25 years. He would get so tired of waiting that he tried to construct the outcome himself. Ishmael, the son he produced with Hagar, because the promise seemed to have stalled. That didn't go the way he intended. And then the son came. Isaac, the one he'd waited for, the one the entire promise ran through. And then God said, take him to the mountain. Abraham knew what that meant. He had lived in that world long enough to know. He loaded the wood. He walked the 3 days. He did not argue. The text says he rose early in the morning. There is no record of a sleepless night, no account of the protest you might expect. He simply went. What Abraham did not know, what he could not have known, was that this was not the end of the story. It was the test that the story required. He didn't know the ram was already in the thicket before he'd taken the first step up the mountain. He only knew what he could see, and what he could see was the worst possible outcome. Joseph was 17 years old when he had the dreams. He dreamed that his brothers would bow down to him. He told them this was not wise. His brothers already resented him. The favored son, the coat, the special treatment. When the opportunity came, they sold him. Not metaphorically, they sold him to a caravan of traders heading to Egypt. They took his coat, dipped it in blood, and brought it back to their father. Jacob tore his clothes. He believed his son was dead. Joseph was not dead. He was in Egypt, in a foreign country, a slave in the house of a man named Potiphar. He did everything right. He earned trust, rose to authority in the household, and then Potiphar's wife accused him of something he hadn't done. He went to prison. He helped 2 men in prison, the cupbearer and the baker, by interpreting their dreams. He asked the cupbearer to remember him when he got out. The cupbearer forgot him for 2 years. This is what the plan looked like from the inside. 17 years old and sold by your own brothers. Slavery, false accusation, prison, forgotten. If Joseph had known at the bottom of that pit that the dreams were still intact, that every single detour was part of a route he couldn't yet see, it would have changed everything. But he didn't know. He just had to survive the next day, and then the next day after that. What he could not see was that every station on that route was preparation, that Potiphar's house would teach him how to manage, that prison would put him in proximity to the men who would eventually stand before Pharaoh, that the 2 more years of waiting after the cupbearer forgot him would mean that when Pharaoh had a dream no one could interpret, Joseph would be the name that was finally remembered. 22 years between the dream and the reunion. 22 years. Moses was 80 years old when God spoke to him from a burning bush. 80 years old. He had grown up as royalty in Egypt, had tried once to defend his people and failed spectacularly, had spent 40 years as a shepherd in Midian, an ordinary man by his own account. When God told him to go back to Egypt, Moses listed every reason he was the wrong person. He was not eloquent. He was unknown. He was nobody. God said, I will be with you. That was the answer. Not a detailed plan, not a reassurance that it would be easy, not a timeline or a map or an explanation of the 10 plagues or the parting of the sea or the 40 years in the wilderness or any of it. Just, I will be with you. Moses went back. What he could not have known at 80 years old, standing in front of a bush that would not burn up, was that the 40 years of shepherding in the desert had been a curriculum, that he had been learning the specific terrain, the specific rhythms of the desert, that he would need to lead 2 million people through it, that his formation, the palace and the exile and the long silence of Midian, was not a detour. It was the degree. 3 men, 3 completely different stories, one pattern. None of them knew the plan in advance. All of them were asked to take the next step with limited information, in circumstances that made no obvious sense, at moments when the easiest interpretation was that things had gone wrong. And the plan was intact the entire time, running beneath the surface of what they could see, assembling itself through the detours, using the very setbacks they couldn't understand. This is not a small thing. You are somewhere in the middle of something that hasn't finished yet. You don't know how the story resolves. You can't see the ram in the thicket from here. You can't see that the pit connects to the palace, or that the desert connects to the Exodus. You're in the part of the story that doesn't make sense yet, which is also, apparently, the part where the most essential preparation happens. You don't have to understand it to survive it. What Abraham knew at 25 years was not what he knew at 75. What Joseph knew in the pit was not what he knew in the palace. What Moses knew at 40 was not what he knew at 80. The understanding came. It always came. But it came on the other side of the part that didn't make sense yet. You are not outside the plan, you are in it.